Hey, I hope you're having a great week. Happy Friday. We're going to continue on our conversation about faith this week. We've talked about Abraham, Moses, Joshua, Gideon, and today I'm going to talk about Esther. To get us started, I'd like to read a verse from Hebrews 11, verse 1. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. So I'm going to give a quick summary of the story of Esther, and we're just going to dive right in. So the story starts out with a queen who dishonors her husband, the king, and she's banished from the kingdom. And so the king calls for all of the young, beautiful virgins to come so that he can choose a new wife. So Esther is a Jewish woman who lost both of her parents and was being raised by her uncle Mordecai. So she goes into the kingdom. She does not tell them that she is Jewish, but she spends a year becoming beautiful. And the time comes for her to be presented to the king. And she finds favor with the king, and the king makes her queen. And so this is super important. She found favor with the king. So there's two things that I want to take away from that. The first one is that God knew the plan for Esther's life. God knew that she was going to become queen, and God has a plan for our lives too. And there's truth in that in the Bible. And so in Jeremiah 29:11, it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a hope and a future." And Esther's plan for her life will unfold in the rest of this story, but it's just really important to remember that God knows. God has a purpose. He had a purpose for Esther, and he has a purpose for us as well. The second point that I want to kind of talk about is that God shows favor to his people. So Esther's cultural background and beliefs of being Jewish might have disqualified her from becoming queen if the king had known. But the Lord's favor was on her, and the king chose her still to be queen. So to continue on with the story, once Esther had become queen, her uncle Mordecai sat outside of the gates, and he overheard some of the king's guards planning to kill the king. And so he informed Esther, who told the king, and that saved the king's life. And those men were done away with or killed. So Haman then becomes promoted, and he becomes above all of the other officials. And Haman was looking to destroy all of the Jews because of their beliefs, and they didn't necessarily always follow all of the orders of the king. For example, if the king ordered them to bow to him, Mordecai did not, because he worshipped the Lord, and he was not going to bow to man. So when Mordecai found out about what Haman wanted to do to his people, to the Jews, he wanted to destroy them, he became very, very upset. And he tore his clothes, the Bible says. And so he begged Esther, like, you have to save our people. Haman has this plan to kill all of the Jews. They have this paperwork. And Mordecai was sending the paperwork to Esther so that she could see it and believe it and just be moved to work on the behalf of the Jewish people. So Esther returns a message back to Mordecai and says, I cannot go before the king. Anybody who goes before the king who's not called or asked to come before will be killed. So Mordecai continues to just encourage Esther, you have to go in front of the king for our people. So Esther asks Mordecai to tell the Jewish people to fast and pray on her behalf, and she spends 3 days before she goes to the king. And she goes into the king's courts, and he finds favor with her once again. And so he asks the queen, what is it that you request? And she requests that the king and Haman come for a feast that she had prepared. So they come to the feast, and again the king asks, what do you want? What is your request? And she says, I request that you come again the next day for a feast. So both Haman and the king come back the next day for the feast. And again, the king asks Esther, what is it that you request? And so Esther requests, and she asks, I need my people to be saved. I need to be saved. And so the king becomes upset as to who is trying to kill these Jews. And Esther informs him that Haman had this paperwork to kill all of the Jews. And Haman ends up dying due to this, and all of the Jewish people are saved. And so if Esther had not stepped out in faith to go into the king, her people may have died. But because of her faith, she was able to save all of the Jewish people in all of the providences. And I think it's so important that we remember that even when we do not see or feel the Lord working, He is. And it's hard to have faith in times like this, times of unknown, but we need to continue to trust God. Esther continued to trust God despite the fact that there was already paperwork to have all of the Jewish people killed. She had faith despite not knowing whether or not she would be killed after entering the king's courts. And she did it anyways. She trusted God that He was going to take care of her. And He did. And so I think that it's so important that we just continue to call on the Lord and have faith in this time. I just want to quickly close in prayer, and then I have a couple of reminders. God, I just pray that You continue to help us in our unbelief. God, that You continue to surround us with comfort and peace in this time. God, I pray that You just reveal Yourself in a new way to us, God. You are faithful and we love You. God, I just pray for safety for all of the students this weekend. And we thank You for who You are. I just want to remind you that we do still have our Sunday service at 10 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. on Facebook or the Woodside website, and we will continue our 12 p.m. worship and devos this coming week, and also be on the lookout for upcoming Zoom calls with your small group or with all of the Woodside students. I pray you have a wonderful week and that you continue to choose faith over fear. Please reach out if you need anything. We love you guys so much.